In Siman Tov Kuf Lamed Zayin, we are up to Sev Zayin, the top line on page Ches, which is the page following 14. The Mechaber says in Sev Zayin, Moshchen es hamayim me'ilan le'ilan. You can draw water from one tree to another tree, ubilvat shelo yashke es kol hasada. As long as you do not water the entire field, just drawing water from tree to tree is mutter, but not watering the whole field. However, the Mechaber says, V'im hoisa sada leicha. Sadalacha. If the field was a moist field already, mutter lahashkos eskula, then you are allowed to water the entire field. Let's see the Mishabura, what exactly is going on over here. It says the Mishabura Sevkat Chavav. Moshchen hamayim, you can draw the water from tree to tree. Pirish, it means to say sha'osin saviv ha'ilan chafiros lamalos osan mayim. During the week, before Yontif started, they would make these little ditches, they would dig in the ground a little bit around the trees in order to fill that area with water. V'su ein bazeh torach harbe. And then it was no longer considered a bir tircha. Lasos charit sheyimashchu bo hamayim me'ilan ilan. Once you had the little ditch around each individual tree, it was not a tircha to make a little groove in the ground to draw the water from one tree to another tree. And if you look in the Sha'ar Tzion and Oschav Beis, he writes, V'hitiru zeba moed mishum di ilonos damyon lebeis hashlochin shetzrichim lemayim tvei. The reason why they were matir, making these holes in the ground to draw the water from one tree to another tree in a field of trees, is because a field of trees is similar to a beis hashlochin, which is an irrigation field where it needs a lot of water, and therefore it would be a davar ha'avid. Sivkoton chav zayin ubovad shelo yashke. As long as you don't water the whole field, the af im lo yashke kula lekab seder leilanos. Because even if you don't water the whole field, it's not going to be a loss to the trees. The af shayidei ha'ashko yia harvacha leilanos. Even though it's true, if you do water the whole field, there will be a benefit to all the trees. Lo sharinan tircha rabba b'shvil harvacha. We do not allow a tircha rabba b'shvil harvacha. Now that line of the Mishabura bothers me a little bit, because by saying that we don't allow a tircha rabba b'shvil harvacha, we really don't allow a tircha rabba even if there's a hefsid. Like we learned in this whole siman, if there's a hefsid, you're not allowed to do a tircha rabba, even for a davar avid. You can't do a tircha rabba. So really it has to be adjusted, and even hamshacha is not going to be allowed for harvacha. But tircha rabba is usher even if there's a hefsid. So this line is a little bit lav dafka. Lo sharina tircha rabba b'shvil harvacha. Tircha rabba is not even allowed if there's a hefsid, so it really means to say that even hamshacha is not allowed for harvacha. Sivkoton chavches eskula. The Mechaber ended off and said, but if the field was a moist field, then you would be allowed to water the whole field. Shekevan shahaisa lacha b'mayim mikodem. Since it was moist with water from beforehand, ein ba torach yoser ayidei hashka. It's not going to be any more of a tircha to be watering the entire field, and therefore that would be permissible. Continues the Mechaber in Sivches, Osir liftoach mokom lasoda kedei sheyikonsu b'mayim lashkosa. You're not allowed to open up, dig some kind of hole in the field that will allow the water to rush through and water the field. V'im osa kedei lotzu dogim. But if you are opening up this entrance to the field to allow the water in, and your kavanah is to catch fish, kedei la'achlan b'moed, in order to eat the fish on the moed, Kigon, for example, sheposeach l'malo mokom sheyikansu. For example, you open an area on the top of the field where the water can enter, u'lamata mokom sheyetzu, and you make another hole in the bottom where the water can exit, then it's mutter. So to open up some kind of pesach for the field, for the water to rush in, to water the field, that's forbidden. But if you're doing it to catch fish, and the sign that you're doing it to catch fish is you make one opening in the beginning, on the top, and one opening at the end, so the water goes through with the fish, and at the end it only lets out the water and the fish remain, and you're doing it in order to eat the fish on the moed, then this same maisa would be permissible. The Mishabura explains this, just to let the water in, to water the field is not allowed. That's like fertilizing the field on the moed. It's getting the field prepared, that is not allowed. But it's if it's to catch fish that you can eat on the moed, then it's permissible. Done in the right way. So says the Mishabura in Sefkat and Lamed, Ayin bebeis meir shadai, to look in the beis meir where his opinion is, de'enu aser rak im kavanoso kedei lahashir kol hadogim al achar hamoed. It's only aser if your whole kavanah is to leave all the fish that you catch for after Yontif. But if your intention is even to eat some of the fish that you catch, even if you don't have in mind to eat all the fish that you catch, but just have in mind to eat some of them, shapir dami, that would be allowed. That is the opinion of the Beis Meir. Note 18, he contrasts this halacha with something that we had a couple of simanim ago. If you look at note 18, he says, Omnam le'inyan breicha gedayla shechofer bitzida. If you have this big pond and you dig a hole on the side, sheyazuvu hamayim kedei lotza dogim, you make a hole on the side so you can catch the fish over there. So we learned earlier, we brought the words of the Magen Avraham, shetzidei le'asor asadav, and the Magen Avraham seemed to say that was aser. Umishum shemuchach she'osel etzarach kol. It's clear that you're doing it with tzarach kol because you're catching so many fish. Umasik, the maskana over there in the Mishabura is if you want to eat some of the fish on the moed, you're allowed to do it through a goy. It doesn't say over there that even though it's going to make a kol, it's going to be a whole noisy thing, that we're matter because you can eat some of the fish. So the kasha is over there, we said it's mutter only through a goy. Here we said as long as you eat some of the fish, it's mutter to do it yourself. The hiksha came b'Shar Tzion Sham. If you look at the Shar Tzion over there in Siman Tov Kuf Lamed Gimel Sevkotan Lamed Zayin, the Shar Tzion asked this kasha, the stira between these two mishaburas. The Kasav and the Shar Tzion writes to answer sheyesh litchos ksas. We could push in and answer a little bit. Shebebreicha nikar yoser sha'osel atzarachol. The case earlier when it comes to that pond, you're really making it more recognizable that you're doing it for the weekday. And the reason is, the way some want to explain it is because you're really emptying out the entire pond. You're drying out the entire pond. You're emptying it out and getting all the fish. Therefore, it's only mutter through a goy. Over here, you're letting some water in and some water out, and you're catching the fish in the interim. You're not emptying out anything completely from its fish. Therefore, over here, as long as you have in mind that you're going to eat some of the fish on the moed, so the Beis Meir says this is mutter to catch all these fish. Ula mi bir hagra. However, the Mishabura continues and says in the bir hagra, the medamezeh lahod nam bedaf yud gimel amud beis. The Gra is comparing this case to the Gemara on Daf Yud Gimel Amud Beis in Moed Katan. Hadashashos osen batzina l'tzarach hamoed. Those people who are pounding the grain, they can do it in private for the needs of the moed. V'sham halo kasav ha'mechaber, and there the Shulchan Aruch brought down le'el b'simen tov kuf lamed gimel sef aleph shelo yarim litchon yoser b'kavana. You're not allowed to be sly and grind more grains than you need on Chol Hamoed. And therefore, so too over here, you can't be sly and let in more fish. And therefore, although the Beis Meir is lenient, as long as you can eat some of the fish to catch as many fish as you want, the Gra is not as lenient, and he says this is more similar to the pounding of the grain, where you can't do harama and do more than you actually need. In the brackets, he writes, "Ochein din harama gufa lab milsa bririhi leisser ayin sham." However, he says even that case of harama is not so clear that it's aser ayin sham. The ayim from Megadim shemistapik gam came bazeh. The Pri Megadim also is mesuvik about this heter of the Beis Meir. He's not so clear that it should be allowed. Says the Mishabura Vaitis Sechatan Lamed Aleph Kigon sheposeach l'mal makom. Again, the Mechaber said if you want to catch fish, therefore you can't open the opening that will allow the water to gush through the field, even though it will water the field, but that's not your kavana. So therefore, if you make a hole on top of the field to let the water in, it will be okay. Says the Mishabura, the afal pisha kavanoso ladogim. Even though your intention is for the fish, ba'inon sheyu maisav nikarim. We need your action to be recognizable. That's in fact for the fish and not for watering the field. Lakach yesh liftoach shnei psachim. Therefore, you have to open up two openings. Hachad Pesach, this is one opening on top of the field. Afal pisha kavano hachad Pesach. I'm sorry, but if you only made one opening, afal pisha kavanoso ladogim aser. Even if your intention is the fish, but if you only made one opening, it's not nikir in your meisim that it is for the fish, because it's easier to catch the fish if you make an opening at the end for the water to go out and the fish remain. So if you only make one opening, it's not nikir, you're doing it for the fish as opposed to watering your field, and then it would be aser. Kevan she'in maisav nikarin. Since your actions are not recognizable, umischazi kumoshe mechavin lashkosa, gives the appearance that you open up that one hole to let the water in, to water the field. V'kasav haritva, the chidush of the chol zeh rak l'inyan isur l'chadchila. This whole discussion is only an isur l'chadchila, not to do it if you don't have the two openings. Ava b'diavad lo kansinan lei, but b'diavad we will not put a fine on you. Imhu omer shadaitu leheter. If you say your intention is for heter, even though it's not muchach from your actions, we will not answer the fish b'diavad. V'chein hadin le'inyan siftes v'yud aleph. In the coming sifim tes yud aleph, it's all the same idea that your actions could be understood in two ways. So it has to be your intention is for the moed, for the mutter thing on the moed, and that your ma'asim are nicker, that is for the moed as well. You need both things in order to be matir l'chadchila. Sekatan lamed beis ulamata mokum sheyetzu. We said again, for it to be a mutter l'chadchila, to catch the fish, not only do you need a hole on the top of the field to let the water go through, you have to have a hole in the bottom to let the water pass through as well. Dahainu sha'osa sham chor katan. On the bottom side of the field, you make a small hole, sheyazuvu hamayim misham, that the water will pour out of the field from there. V'yisharu hadogim nitzodim me'elehen, and the fish will remain inside the field caught automatically. V'afal pisha memela asada shosa me'amayim shari. Even though memela, by letting the water go through to catch the fish, your field has been watered, it's still permissible. The davar she'ein miskavenu. This is something you didn't have kavanah for. Your kavanah was to the fish, not to water the field. It's a psik reisha. So if you look at note 20, he just points out the avsha b'shabes v'yom tov lo hutter lasas malacha she'ein miskavin la ba'ofen shu psik reisha. Even though we know in Hilchos Shabbos and Yontiv you can't do something even without kavanah, if you know the malacha is going to happen, it's a psik reisha, it is aser. The gam kanare sof hasadem mushkis, and here also at the end of the day the field is getting watered, and you know it's going to get watered. Mikom makom b'chol hamoed lo gazru. They did not make this gzeira on Chol Hamoed. V'chein le'inyan siruk saros hasus b'masrek hamashir nimen. We have this also as well, using the comb to comb the hair of the horse. Even though it's going to pull out hair, we said sheb'chol hamoed mutter lasos kain. On Chol Hamoed it's mutter limro shebiyom tov asa mishum psik. So the bottom line is, even though on Yontif and Shabbos psik answers a davar she'ein miskavin and Chol Hamoed it doesn't, and therefore, since your kavanah of letting the water through the field is for the fish, and the field will get water memela as a psik reisha, it's still mutter. Says the Mechaber Vayter Siftes, Aser lahashvos hasoda l'tzarech harisha. You can't flatten out, smoothen out the field for purposes of plowing. But if it's clear from your actions that your intention of smoothing out the field is to do dosh, is to thresh, to benefit the moed itself, the example of how it would be recognizable that you're doing it for that reason is if you smooth out the entire field, then mutter, it will be permissible. Says the Mishaburas of Kodin Lam and Gimel Kigon Shemash Vekula Sheyoser Tzarech Karka Shave Lodosh Milachrosh. You need more ground that is smooth in order to do dosh than to do plowing. That is the understanding of the Mechaber, but the Mishabur then says V'habri Rishonim Sirilu Lehipuch. There are many Rishonim that say it's the exact opposite, that you need more flat ground for plowing than for dosh. The Alkein Tavayu Asiri, and therefore we have to answer both of them. That's the Bach. V'chein mashtem bir hagron sheyesh lochosh l'divrei elu rishonim. We should be concerned for those rishonim as well. The Esher degam hu model la'abach t'tavayu asiri. Says the Mechaber Vayter Sif Yud. Asur l'laket eitzim min asada li'aposo l'charisha. You are not allowed to gather sticks that are loose in the field in order to make it nicer and easier to plow. But if it's recognizable from your actions that you're collecting the wood for the need of the wood, you want to use the wood for firewood, how is that recognizable? That you need the wood. Kigon, for example, you're taking the big pieces, leaving the small. That's when it's recognizable that your kavanah is not to clear out the field for charisha, but rather your kavanah is because you want the wood for the firewood. So then mutter. Again, your kavanah is for a mutter thing, and it's clear from your actions that it's mutter. So that will also be permissible. There is no mishabura on Sif Yud. Says the Mechaber Vayter Sif Yud Aleph, Osir l'katzeitz anfei ha'ilun l'sakno. You are not allowed to cut off branches of the tree to fix the tree up on Chol Hamoed. However, v'imnikar shemechavim b'shvil ha'nofim. If it's clear from your actions that you don't want to fix the trees, you just want the branches for whatever it is, the firewood, or rather, as the Mechaber says, a better example, It's nikir shemechavim b'shvil hanofim la'achilon lebehemto. You want the branches to feed to your animals. V'lo l'sakno, not just to beautify the trees. Kegon shekotzetz kulan mitzad echad. The example would be how to be recognizable. Your kavanah is not to make the tree nice, but rather it's to feed to your animals. You take off all the branches on one side of the tree, and now you have a lopsided tree. It's certainly not making your tree look more beautiful. Then it's obvious you're doing it for your animals. Then, says the Mechaber, it will be mutter. So again, if your kavanah is for something that's mutter to feed your animals, and your maisa is clear what your kavanah is, like we've been discussing, it is mutter. Says the Mishaburis of Katan Lamedalit. If it's clear that your kavanah is for the branches to feed to your animal, it's mutter. Now he reiterates what he said earlier, which was going to hold true from Sifches to Tes, Yud and Yud Aleph. All these examples that we just gave, and similar examples, Tarte Ba'inam, we need two things to be matir on Chol Hamoed. Number one, Shehei Kavanaso Laheter. One is that your intention is for something that's allowed to be done on Chol Hamoed. Number two is Umaisav yu mochichin v'nikarim. Your actions should be clear and recognizable. Sheladas tzorech haheter hu oseh. It should be clear from your actions that your kavanah is in fact a mutter dika kavanah. Kamosh kasadin, like we wrote. Aval im kavanasa le'isser. But if your intention is for isser, afal pi shemaisav mochichin shelatzorech haheter hu oseh. Even if your actions are clear that you're doing it for heter, but you know your kavanah is for isser. Or if your kavanah is for heter, your actions don't mirror your kavanah, aser. So same idea again. If your maisim that you are doing are for a mutter reason, and it's clear from your actions that it is such, it's mutter. If you're lacking one of those two things, it will be aser. Says the Mechaber Vayter Sif Yud Beis, Ein maslian ha'ilonos. You cannot take the worms off of the trees. V'lo mezamin hanetios, and you also cannot be mezamin hanetios. The Ramah says in the parentheses, what does it mean? Mezamin pirish madbikin sham zevel kadei shelo yamas ha'ilon. You're putting on zevel, which is animal excrement, in order that the tree should not die. So that is usher as well. Aval sochin ha'ilonos va'aperos b'shemen. But what you can do is you can smear the trees and the fruit with oil. So we'll see why you're doing all these things or why you're not doing all these things. But the first two, the maslian and the mezamin, are usher, but the sachin of the trees and the fruit is mutter. Says the Mishaburas of Katan Lamed Hey, Ein maslian. What does that mean? Shenotel hatoloim shenaflu ba'ilonos. You're taking off the worms that fell on the tree. Even though if you do not take off the worms, they will destroy and ruin your tree, it is usr. Because again, even by a davra ovid, if it's a tirchi yaseira, it's not allowed. Therefore, you can't deworm your trees. V'lo mezamin, we said you can't put fertilizer on the tree to try to make the tree more healthy. Says in Mishabur Lamed Vav, Kishenoshra tzas klipaso. When a little bit of the outer layer gets peeled or falls off the tree, madbikin sham zevel, they would put on there, they would attach some fertilizer, shelo yamas, so the tree should not die. The isuro gam ke mishum tirchi yaseira, apparently that's also a tirchi yaseira, and therefore that's not allowed on Chol Hamoed. But what you can do is you can smear with oil the tree and the fruit. Why would you want to smear the tree with oil? So kat lamed zayim, tahainu shekatu nofo kodam hamoed. You cut off some branches before the moed. Kedei sheyotzi nofos harbe seviv makom hakatia. Apparently the nature of a tree is, if you cut off one branch, more branches will grow around in that area. So before Yontif, you cut off a branch, hoping that more branches are going to grow in that area. Mutter lasucho b'shemen b'mekom hakatia kedei shelo yamus. You can smear that area that's now bare, that you cut off the branch from, in order that more branches to grow. You could smear with oil to save the tree from dying. And you could also smear the fruit with oil in order that she should get ruined. Apparently, the oil will preserve the fruit. These things are not a tirchi yaseira, and therefore they are permissible for a davar ha'avid. Says the Mechaber Vayter Sif Yud Gimel. Ishus v'achbarim. Ishus, as we'll see, is a type of animal. Some say it's a mole, v'achbarim, and mice. Shemafsidin distei ilon. That they're ruining a field of trees. Mutter latsudan kedako. You are allowed to trap these animals the normal way. What is the normal way? Shechofer guma. You dig a hole. V'tola boha mitzoda. And you hang down in the hole a trap to catch these little animals. Even by a wheat field that is near a tree field, mutter latzudan kedarko. You also can trap these animals the normal way. Because even though now they're in your wheat field, but they're going to spread to your tree field. And since these animals are a danger to a tree field, you can catch them the normal way in the tree field, and you can even catch them the normal way in the wheat field that is adjacent to the tree field. However, continues the Mechaber, but if you find them in a wheat field that is not near a tree field, you can only trap them by using a shinui. You have to change up the way you do it. And what is the shinui? You stick down a spit into the ground. You shake it back and forth to get a hole. Until you create a hole. And then you hang down your trap. So instead of digging the hole, you're going like this to make the hole by putting a spit into the ground. So it's a little bit of a shinui. So again, if the animals are in the tree field or the wheat field near the tree field, do it the regular way. If it's in a wheat field that's not near a tree field, you have to do this shinui. V'yesh omrim, some say that we're one step more machmir. Shebistei alav asmucha l'stei ha'ilan, that if it's in a wheat field that's near a tree field, eino mutter elai de shinui, it's only mutter by exercising that shinui. V'im eino smucha l'stei ha'ilan, if it's in a wheat field that's not near a tree field, Aser afilai de shinui, it's totally aser. So it takes the last two cases of the first sheet of the Mechaber and makes it one step more machmir. Says the Mishaburas of Katan Lamed Ches Ishus, who sheretz katan. It is a small sheretz she'ein lo einayim. It has no eyes. V'darko lachbor b'fnim hakarka, and its way is to dig inside the ground. V'kasher yimatzei b'asada, and if it is found inside a field, yekalkel ha'ilanos ayidei chafirosav. It will destroy the trees by doing its digging, and therefore you do not want these animals inside your tree field. This is going on the third case, where you have it in a wheat field that's not adjacent to a tree field. You have to do a shinui. Says the Mishabura, the low mafsit kuliyai b'stei lavan, because these animals, they only do a little damage in a stei lavan, not as much as they do by a stei ilan, and therefore if it will not affect a stei ilan, you can only do a shinui. V'yesh omrim ayin bir halacha, where he explains the machlokes of why you have to do more of a shinui according to the second opinion. But we will stop here and continue Amir Hashem tomorrow with Sif Yudalid.